So welcome again. Happy Mother's Day. And I'm going to thread in a little about Mother's Day in my message today. But I am going to begin just sharing with you our theme material. And as most of you know, all of the Centers for Spiritual Living communities have available to them thematic material, message material that a really crack team of ministers and students of our teaching, practitioners, some in the School of Leadership. Anyway, they come together and they vision and then they create, and an even bigger team of people contribute to these annual themes. And they're broken down by the year and by the month and by the Sunday, by the week. And our theme for 2021 is called Timeless Wisdom, Evolutionary Vision. Our theme for May is Holy, Holy Uprising. And for today, the theme is called Revolutionary Love. And our contributor today is Reverend Masando Hiraoka. He serves at the Mile High Church in Denver. So thank you, Reverend Masando, for this message today. Now, I'm going to start with the Holy, Holy Uprising context for this message. Now, the Centers for Spiritual Living has as its aspiration and inspiration this science of mind and spirit teaching, philosophy, and tools. And to boil it all down, that teaching, that philosophy, those tools, what Ernest Holmes, the founder, the writer, the creator of the science of mind and spirit, was to help folks raise their consciousness. And that begins with an intention to rise up, to move up, to be better, to do better. And as that intention is fulfilled, spiritual truth naturally demonstrates in your life. Spiritual truth naturally demonstrates in our center, in the Downey Center for Spiritual Living. Spiritual truth naturally demonstrates in our communities and, in fact, all throughout the world. And in that evolution, that revolution, is an unconditional love. So that's where this theme for today comes in, revolutionary love. It is an unconditional love, and that unconditional love is already within you, it's already within me. And what comes up are these feelings of grace and compassion, and indeed a courage or a boldness. And that naturally then expresses and experiences in your life and my life as revolutionary acts of love. So it transforms, it converts into an activity of loving. And as this fits with our CSL global vision, just to paraphrase it a little bit, you imagine and perceive a world that is for everyone, that works for everyone, and a world in which you are called to conscious social action. And so Ernest Holmes had made some comments, especially later in his life, about what social action might look like or feel like, and be in integrity with his teaching. So he said, for if the whole community works together and prays together, a great moral and spiritual power, an actual soul force penetrates the whole world, helping to bring confidence and calm judgment and right action until any crisis passes. Fear is conquered by your faith, and God is always on the side of the highest good, of the highest love. So that is the direction, the context with which this message is created. Now, the other part of our annual theme that is addressed or worked with in these messages and talks, but it's also worked into my daily spiritual practice, is the timeless wisdom and the evolutionary vision. And what came up for this message from Reverend Masando was, in my interpretation, the treat and move your feet. And of course, part of that treat and move your feet is the social action that this revolutionary love calls forth. And meaning that any spiritual practice, any spiritual endeavor really ought to have an associated action in Humanville, right? It needs to move from the concept to the execution, from the ethereal to the material. And what that means for you and I is that we put this experiment of raising our consciousness into motion. We put it to a test. And of course, that's part of the science part of the science mind is this scientific method, right? That means that you are proving something to and for yourself about your consciousness. And even though others have done it, no one else can do it for you. It's something that you have to do for yourself. So it's nice to read and to learn, be inspired by those that are moving forward on their spiritual path and doing so by using some of these basic spiritual tools. But it's up to you and it's up to me to apply it to our own lives, to engage in those spiritual practices, to actually then move, make changes, do something different in our lives according to how our consciousness is being expanded, grown. And it also means that on the communal level, that you are circulating your good for the benefit of all. You're circulating your good for the benefit of all God's creation. And of course, in this teaching, everything and everyone is an aspect, a facet, a frequency, a phase, an amplitude of living spirit. So you and I, this table, this technology, this is all part of a circulation of God's good. And as your consciousness raises, as you become more aware of the allness, the omnipresence of living spirit, it is natural that your good contributes to the greater good, that your good contributes to a greater compassion, that your good contributes to a greater connection of all life, of all living, of all spirit. Now, this revolutionary love, as Reverend Masando points out, is a way of being, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of feeling, it's a way of acting that is rooted in many respects to love for one another. Certainly the most familiar application, the thing that you and I identify first with is this connection, this affection, this affinity that I would have for another person. And we would identify that as being love, yes? But it is in preparing your consciousness that you're beginning to rise up. And you're beginning to rise up in a revolutionary love for yourself, for myself, as well as for each other. And then that extends to a consciousness that says that there is one life that we are all living, and therefore there is one love that we are all loving. So Mother's Day then it fits into this theme perfectly, because I think mothers at their best are the epitome of a revolutionary love. And I just want to, take a moment to point out that, there are experiences of mothers that maybe not be all that healed or all that pleasant, right? And I really just want to set aside that because those are circumstances and conditions that have been brought up in a mother relationship, a mother-child relationship. And really, those are lessons being learned. Those are healing opportunities. And it also brings up this idea of generational healing. And this is certainly part of our social discourse right now. It's one of the things that is in front of us, is front and center in the healing of our community, of our country, of our families, right? So I want to move on to the most positive aspects, the most positive feelings, that the most positive exchange, that circulation of love that mothers exemplify. Now, just think about this, and I was just thinking about this, out of some sort of positivity, and I'm just going to use the general term, because the specific terms that one might use about how a mother comes to be a mother and a child comes into this earth plane phase of expression and experience, there is something positive that brought that about. And what it brought about in physical form is the baby, the offspring, the child. And in human terms, right, that child is an unsustainable life form. On its own, that baby, that infant, would not survive or not survive very long if it didn't get help, right? If it didn't get care and nurturing from someone or something. And at the same time, that unsustainable life form is pure love. It is a radiance that's so strong that a mother to that child is brought into existence. Now, oftentimes that mother is the mother that brought that child into this world, but sometimes it's a different mother than the one that brought that mother into this world. So I just want to be very clear that I'm talking about the mother of the most positive and powerful active sense here, the best example of mother. And so in the heart and the mind of the mother, the child is a unity, right? It's a unification right there and right then of body and pure spirit. And right there is, in that moment, and the billions of moments that follow, there is a spark, right? There is a flame, there is a fire, there is a passion. In the Aramaic, their term for this kind of love is huba. And huba, in a direct translation, just means fire, right? But this kind of love that extends so strongly and so powerfully, in the Aramaic, they refer to it as huba. And it is this pure spiritual connection. It is this universal overarching. It is a feeling of love. It is a caring, a kindness, and affection that exceeds all reasoning. It is a circulation of something good, something constructive, something positive. It is indeed a holy uprising of spirit right here on earth. So I deeply appreciate and give thanks for my mother, for her generosity of spirit, for her sacrifices, for the love that she has showered upon me. And I really extend my gratitude to all mothers everywhere on this day, that we acknowledge that powerful spiritual, that revolutionary love right here and right now. Thank you for that. And for those that know me, I can at times get a little stuck on terminology. I might be alone here. I don't know. And the term that I'm stuck on in this message is love. Because for me, it is really a specific feeling. And it's a specific feeling that there are other feelings that come up that I want to be specific about too. So when I'm talking about love in this message and in this context, I hope you understand that I mean that I'm talking about that any feeling that is positive, that is constructive, that is creative, that is intuitive, it is that inward feeling of sensation of any or all of those things. Now, I have often shared with you, and I'll share with you right now, a slide that depicts other inward feelings, right? And, even the Bible talks about love and peace and joy, and of those, love being maybe the most important, maybe peace being the most important. But here are other feelings like beauty and joy and compassion and connectedness and generosity and harmony. All of these things are inward feelings, inward sensations that I have, that you have, I think we all have. And it's important just to understand that there is a whole, there's a whole rainbow of positive, constructive feelings that exist as part of our essence, right? So those inward feelings in Science of Mind Speak, that is your direct revelation of God. So when you're feeling something positive inwardly, understand that that is God coming to life in you and as you. When I refer to the term living spirit, I mean that spirit lives, spirit is alive in you. When you are living spirit, you are living love. You are living peace. You are living joy. You are living compassion. You are living intelligence. You are living intuitively. So I just want to understand when we're talking about love, I'm talking about that whole realm, that whole universe of positive feelings that might have more specific terms for you and be more important contextually in the experience and the expression of your life. Now, part of the science of my teaching is that the universe is reciprocal, meaning as you live spirit, you become a conduit through which spirit lives through you. You become that circulator of goodness, of godness. And that circulation is easy and effortless. It is exciting. It is energizing. It is expansive, and it is freeing. It is liberating. And then as you are living spirit, spirit is living you, meaning that you begin to live, exist in more of that full measure of the God, the good within you. And you live in a greater resonance and appreciation of that which surrounds you that is good and positive, the beauty, the love, the intelligence, the compassion of the world around you. And it is all that same circulation of God's good. It is all that infinite love, that wellspring of goodness, of godness that is reciprocal in your life. And I think that I might be alone, maybe not, but there is a tendency in everyone to respond to something greater in your life, right? There is a tendency to express and experience something good, something positive, something connective, something compassionate. And of course, that is the God in you coming to mind, saying, hey, here's an opportunity to express that revolutionary love. So I think that souls through this human phase, there are a lot of distractions from that tendency, right? There are a lot of pretenders to that tendency. And what that does, at least when I am distracted from the good of my being, right, that my light is obscured. And the first place from which my life is obscured is me, right? Because I'm the one that's directly having this disconnect, this sort of absence of positivity in my life. And that is in sort of opposition to the reason that I'm here. Because the reason that I'm here is to live spirit. The reason I'm here is to share that God, that good, that love, that compassion in my life. So then the question becomes, how do I reduce those particular distractions? How do I distinguish from the pretenses so that I can live a more peaceful, more fruitful, more compassionate life? And that comes through spiritual practices. So that means that I regularly meditate. I treat or affirm or I pray. I do some form of spiritual study or reading. It might mean reading the Science of Mind magazine and following the daily guides. I maybe do some journaling. I might ask myself, what is God's highest idea for this moment, this day, my life, or my family, or my career, or my organization, my center for spiritual living? And as I ask that question, I just respond to, what is the quality or nature of that high idea? So that's just visioning, and you can do that anytime, anywhere, frequently, right? And then maybe less frequency, I give myself over to sacred service. I see my practitioner and get spiritual counseling. I give as a spiritual practice, and I join together regularly in beloved community like we are all doing right now. And I think out of those, the question becomes, what is going to help me most to break old patterns and help form more productive patterns? And so what came to me this week were two things. One is seeing my spiritual counselor, right? Regularly going to my practitioner. And in this case, we're doing it through Zoom, which is, again, another blessing of this technology. Because it's just much easier to do that for a lot of folks and for me. But it's really helped to have that, as we've gone through this era of the pandemic and are emerging from it, it's still a technology that continues, and therefore it's still an easy way to see your spiritual counselor, to have a practitioner session. But what that practitioner is going to do, for those of you that haven't availed yourselves of this magnificent spiritual practice, is that they're going to help you bring beliefs to conscious awareness. They're going to help you identify some of these patterns in your life, and they're going to coach you around how to improve your spiritual practices. They are your unconditional spiritual supporter. They will know the spiritual truth for you, even through those times you may not know it for yourself, right? And they will help you acknowledge and heal and release and process any particular challenge, any distraction from the truth of your being, any pretender to the truth of your being. They are going to help you through that. They are going to nurture you and help your consciousness grow. And boy, are they good at it. And I can speak strong testimony to how much practitioners have moved me through so many seeming obstacles, seeming barriers to my spiritual growth. So I strongly encourage you to do that. We have magnificent practitioners right here at Downey, as well as Reverend Judy and Reverend Sunshine. We are also practitioners first and just happen to be ministers as well. So we are here to serve you and help you. The other spiritual practice that came to mind is one that's been very effective for me, and I've mentioned this in the past, is this idea of a short prayer. Something that I can use at any moment that stuff comes up for me, right? And so my two favorite ones are, God is present here, and invite or come Holy Spirit, right? So, I might just be walking down the street and I encounter some circumstance on the street. Typically, it's folks that don't have shelter right now. And I do my best to acknowledge and engage, say hello, and connect with those folks. And at the same time, I'm running my short prayer. God is present here. God is present here. God is present here. I'm invoking that presence for myself and for anyone else that might be, open, receptive to that possibility in their lives. But that is a way in which I, moment by moment, have available to me, I have available to me a way to cut through the distraction, right? To see through the pretension of any given moment and to be more genuine and immediate to that life and love of living spirit that is unfolding right before my very eyes if I'm only just open and receptive to it. And therefore be without any kind of, or at least to the best of my ability, to be without any kind of judgment or prejudice around how God might show up in my life. Because God is showing up in my life, is appearing in my life, is moving in me in ways, always, and in ways that I have yet to open up to. So I'm constantly opening to that. And the way that I'm doing that is through some form of short prayer. So I encourage you to find what that short prayer is for you. And of course, your your mission, should you choose to accept it, is hopefully next week you're going to be able to share with us your short prayer and how that helped you grow in consciousness over the next coming days, right? So that is your spiritual practice that raises your consciousness. Now, the other thing that happens on the spiritual journey is that there are people that go before, and I've mentioned those by way of our mothers, right? But oftentimes we take the big ticket, right? The big ticket way showers, the teachers, the Buddha and the Krishna and Moses and Muhammad and Ishwa. We take people and say they were the great example. They were the great exemplars of living the enlightened life. And in some case, they are the transformative example where they came from an ordinary existence and through their dedication, through their inspiration, became an extraordinary example of God living love right here and right now. So the question becomes, who in this moment are your examples, right? Who sets that pattern for you? And I'd like to unpack this term from time to time because oftentimes that is a paradigm. We might say, well, Ishawa represented a paradigm of goodness, of godness, right? And of course, there is this term coined by a scientist and a physicist and philosopher named Thomas Kuhn called paradigm shift, right? Now, the root of the word paradigm means to show side by side. And it has come to mean in the English language, this pattern or model of something, right? So we often talk about there is a pattern for love and life in your light. And your consciousness is part of discovering that pattern for yourself, right? And then a paradigm shift means that pattern fundamentally changes, right? That those basic concepts, those experimental practices, in this case, our spiritual practices, right? Because we are for ourselves running the science of mind and spirit experiment, right? That those things, those disciplines, those practices, those concepts shift. So there's some of the old pattern that remains, but we're actually morphing into new patterns. And that is the paradigm shifting. So those spiritual predecessors obviously followed that pattern of shifting in really dramatic fashion, whether it was Buddha, Krishna, Moses, Muhammad, Ishwa, and your mother have already proven this, right? That you are at your essence pure spirit, that all that is sensed in some form or fashion in your life is living spirit. And once that mentality prevails in your consciousness, more and more of your life is lived as pure positive feeling, right? Moment to moment, you are feeling those qualities of God. Some of those are just an inward sensation. Some of those you are called to move on, to act on, to express in some way, right? And as you do that, you notice that your life force is sourced by this wellspring of love, of peace, of joy, and compassion. And that now you become that pattern, that way shower, that inspiration, not only for yourself, but for others. So let's turn our attention inward right now. And as I call to mind that pattern for God, that pattern for goodness, I recognize living spirit as those qualities, those inward sensations, those feelings. And it might be love or peace or joy or creativity or compassion. It might be a feeling of health and well-being. It might be a feeling of a plenitude in your life. But that is all God in feeling. And we know those feelings by words and mind. And as we know that we are one with living spirit. That is the evidence of the good, the God within you, within me. That those feelings are evident, that those feelings are full and complete. And not only that, those feelings are transformative. They are consciousness raising. So I speak my word knowing that the love and light of living spirit is alive and well in you right now. That you are responding to that goodness and that godness in new and profound ways. That the appearance of any of those patterns, those habits that don't seem to be in alignment anymore with this new awareness, this new consciousness, that you bless those and release those with an ease and grace. That your life, your mind, your heart are now energized with the fullness of God, of living spirit that is within you and surrounds you. That you feel that more and more frequently, more and more easily. So blessing the world as I am blessed, blessing the world as you are blessed, I just say thanks for this answered prayer. I say thanks for this communion in spirit. And I release it all into the law of mind and action, knowing as it is spoken, as it is said, as it is thought and sensed and felt, it is. It's happening now. That revolutionary love is the love of your life right now. And now it is. Thank you so much.